Anant sir and Lipika ma'am, I personally am very interested to hear this out. And I'll just do the brief introductions. Anant Merathia is a practicing commercial litigation and disputes resolution lawyer with over 18 years of experience in India and Singapore. His core areas of interest remain corporate advisory, governance, shareholder, and board issues. Corporate insolvency and restructuring is something also which sir is known for. Which leads to obviously him advising SME companies. His book Defaulters Paradise Lost on the corporate insolvency laws of India comes with an objective to make it a reference point for industry and not just the legal fraternity. It is a pleasure to have you here on board with us, sir. A huge round of applause for Mr. Anant, followed by obviously Lipika ma'am. Lipika Bhushan is a marketing and PR expert with rich experience in areas of brand building, brand communication, and conducting successful product launches across categories such as white goods and consumer durable, FMCG, telecom, lifestyle, and publishing. An alumnus of JDBIMS Mumbai and IIM Ahmedabad, Lipika is a two-time industry winner of the International Award of Excellence in Use of Multimedia Marketing. It's a pleasure to have you here on board with us, ma'am. Please welcome your speakers for this session with a huge round of applause, especially people at the back.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. A very good afternoon to all of you. I know it's close to lunch, and we'll try to keep it as interesting and peppy for you to thereafter head on for your lunch breaks. Today I'm here with Anant Merathia, as already has been introduced. Anant is, to me, more a writer of this book, this wonderful book called Defaulters Paradise Lost, Demystifying the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code 2016. His title reminded me of John Milton's poem called Paradise Lost. It's a classic and a very interesting poem for that matter. This book, though, is very different from what the poem actually inferred. It primarily simplifies the code. It is a fabulous attempt that traces the evolution of code. It also gives out, in a very simple way, the impact, the structure. It starts with the history before the introduction of the code, and it has some glowing endorsements from everybody you all idolize. So congratulations, Anant, on a fabulous book. Because I'm here from a publishing background, my questions will be more directed to you from a perspective of a writer than a litigator. And the first question, therefore, is what was the need to come out with a book that simplified this code? And your use of the language is so fluid, is so easy to understand. It's so easy to understand. What was the reason for you to take on this subject in the first place and simplify it? Usually, litigators come out with books which are quite academic in nature, and I think they are more targeted towards the students of law, they are practitioners of law, and the people who are in the fraternity. But this one also, to me, in a lot of ways, moved out of that particular fraternity and allowed a common person also to get a hang of it. So what was the need for, in the first place, for you to think of this idea of simplifying it and not go the regular route of an academic book, so to say?
Sure. So a very good afternoon to one and all, and thank you to the Vidhi Lit Fest and Oak Bridge for having me here. Thank you, Lipika. So to answer your question straight away, given that we are close to lunch. Any legal subject, there's a general perception that law as such is a heavy subject for non-lawyers, people who are outside the legal framework. They find it not just about this particular law, insolvency code, but by and large, the general perception is even for law students, they find most of the books are reasonably complex. There are commentaries which are more detailed in nature. So I thought there is a need or there is a gap in the industry, if I may say, in the ecosystem, where definitely there can be a new genre of books that can be created where you can possibly call it as non-fiction legal, which does connect the legal issues with the concerned stakeholders. And this particular law, why? This is one law, while it may just be a legal subject for many, but it impacts the businesses in this country, the businessman, the promoter, the guarantor, an employee, somebody who is a vendor to a company, somebody who's in any way associated to an establishment or an organization. So yeah, that was the reason. And our objective is to ensure that the law is not limited only amidst, I would say, the legal professionals. Yes, definitely for expert advice, they're there to represent you. But if you want to pick up something and understand in a simplified way, I think there is certainly a need for more books of hopefully similar nature where it's easier to understand, simple to read, and yeah, that's pretty much the reason why I went ahead with this.
There was a very interesting session right before ours on branding. And anybody who's in the field of branding knows that today writing books are also part of your brand building exercise. I would like to understand how much of that was driving your interest in the first place. And secondly, there are a lot of students of law here. How do you think they should go about this process of identifying a genre that they would write, or a subject in their area of expertise to write about and share it with readers?
Thank you. So I think to be very honest, while I was writing the book, there was no thought of as such a brand building perspective, but there is a very senior lawyer from our fraternity, Mr. Arvind Datar, who's a huge inspiration who I follow a lot. He's somebody who I look up to. He's an inspiration. And he always, if you go to any of his webinars, sessions that he's taken, he's encouraged lawyers to write books, younger lawyers even more to write books. One of the reasons being, see, in the legal fraternity or in the legal industry, there are some Bar Council of India regulations where you can't solicit work, so on and so forth, which is fine. Now, how do you let people know that, yes, you're also there as far as an area of a legal area is concerned? So that becomes one reason, but that's not the only reason I would say. This also gives you a lot of satisfaction because it's a process where, I mean, as they say, you may move on in life, even after your book remains. I believe in that concept.
Correct. Absolutely.
That's something which you're leaving a legacy, not just a book. And if it's well received and well taken by people, definitely. Now, the second part of it with respect to the law students, the younger people, depending on what stage of their career they are in, if they've seen a reasonable amount of work at the ground level from their experience, they can put that together in a particular, with respect to a particular legal subject that they're practicing or they're interested in. They can put that in. If they're relatively new, they can obviously start off with writing articles. I was, in fact, yesterday afternoon, I met someone and they were keen. And quite a few of the younger minds, they're brilliant. They're academically brilliant. Their English is very nice, very good. It's just that they need that initial push to start writing. And you can start off with articles, blogs, and at the right time when you know that you have the content, you have your, I would say, structure or your thoughts in place, what is it that you want to cover, you can. Subject, definitely something which has to be close to their heart, something which they have some experience in, because if they want to write something which is not academic in nature, some amount of experience would help. But then there are younger lawyers with just 2 to 3 years, 2 to 4 years in the bar, who've also written good books. So yeah, that's very much, and I would definitely urge younger lawyers to please write. You write articles, you write, if you can put together a book, nothing like it, a few of younger lawyers can come together to write a book. But yeah, it's a very satisfying exercise at the end of the day.
But that also brings up a question that the legal parlance is very different from what you need to use in terms of the language when you are writing a book, supposedly for a general audience and not really your legal fraternity alone. What were the kind of reskilling and upskilling exercises that you took in order for you to be able to put this entire book in place in the first place?
So first thing, when we started this exercise of writing this book, which was early 2019, we were very clear that, at least I in my mind was very clear, and I've done this with the team, so I will give due credit to the team as well. And I think somebody just spoke in the last session, you're pretty much as good as your team is. So kudos to my team for sticking around with me through a period of the pandemic, and still we managed to put this book together. I was very clear that this book has to be something which is addressing the common person, or see, when I use the word common man, there is a certain benchmark for a common man. It could be a banker, a chartered accountant, company secretary, MSME business owner. So a common man doesn't mean absolutely somebody out there at the lowest, I would say, level in terms of this thing. So that's our objective. That was one. Yes, definitely the most difficult and challenging part is, as lawyers, we tend to be fairly, I'm not getting a better word, but please pardon me for using this, but it is verbose. We tend to write detailed content. We tend to write something which is fairly technical in nature, give case laws, give section references. So originally when the manuscript was ready, the first manuscript, it was actually double the size, almost 1.5 times the size of this. And then we had to cut short, we had to simplify things, merge a few aspects to ensure that if we would have come with our original manuscript, which was obviously well taken by the publisher, but then that would have been, again, just another technical book. So yes, that was, I think after the first manuscript was ready, from there to reaching where the final book went for the print, I think that's where a lot of simplification took place. But also when I was writing along with the team, we were very clear that no, this has to be in a simplified language wherever possible. Even then, we ended up using technical aspects and terms.
Of course, and there are pages of citations that are there for anybody to refer to, which is very natural coming from a lawyer. In the writing journey, usually people face a few challenges in terms of the discipline itself. How did you go about doing that, especially given that you're a practicing lawyer, your time as it is of a great value with lots of commitments already, your professional commitments taking away a lot of your time. How did you go about this entire discipline of writing a book and putting it out for the readers?
Truth be told, sometimes you have to make sacrifices. And yes, the sacrifice here was the family time, and I would not shy away from saying that. 2019, we started writing, but then a lot of people generally, there's this whole thing that during the pandemic, during the COVID period, books were written, and which is great. People made the best use of time. And for me, as long as they are writing, it's great. Doesn't matter when people are writing. But actually, in our case, the book took a break for 1 year, right from the first wave to the third wave of the COVID, because the then focus was, as someone was just speaking in the previous session, we as a team, as a firm, had to survive both from a health perspective and from a financial perspective. We didn't have coffers for 3 months, 4 months ready. So it was to ensure that we are all working from home and all of that. So the book took a break. But then somewhere in 2021, early again, we started completing, and 22 we finished the manuscript. Now in terms of discipline, I think the only thing I can say is that yes, a lot of time was taken out, carved out on a weekly basis, a few hours from the work, routine work. I had to cut down some amount of my routine legal work. Definitely, it's a lonely process, though there's a team with you which is helping you do the research and all of that. It is a fairly lonely process. And yes, family life, the time that I spent with my family, it did take a beating. But yeah, sometimes you need to, if you're looking at very passionately to achieve something, it would be too idealistic to say that everything is doable and possible in a perfect way or an ideal way. You have to make some compromises, you have to make some choices. That was a choice that I made, and so I would give credit to my family for that. And right now I'm facing the difficulty where my second book, the manuscript is somewhere halfway there, and I'm not able to put in the time, but hopefully sometime soon there as well.
It's very interesting. After having worked with almost like 1,500 plus writers who, some of them are full-time writers like Jeffrey Archer, to some of them who are heads of some of the biggest conglomerates in the country and the world. One thing that I must assure anybody who's wanting to take that journey into writing is that it's very important to build and find your discipline. Some of them, wake up early in the morning. A few others like Anant, chalk out a weekly chart for themselves to write. But unless you get down to chalking that particular schedule out for yourself, it's very difficult for anybody to start and continue in that journey of writing, because after a few reams, you yourself start getting bored with what you've written at times. And, going back to it several times as it is adds to your testing of your patience. How did, and since you just mentioned this fact that, it was a 1.5 times bigger book earlier, what happens when an editor in the entire process says, nahi, nahi, ye sab kato, ye required nahi tha, and you see that all those hours that you've put in to put those additional pages and information into that book have suddenly been chopped off because the marketability of that book demands it to be of a certain size, within a certain price point. How did that, tell us a little bit about that particular phase where you were into the editing process of the book?
Okay, so that's actually the most difficult question. It was difficult. It was difficult, but then had we gone ahead with the original manuscript also, the publisher per se was okay with it. The size was not the challenge as far as the publisher was concerned, but we felt that we are becoming too technical as a team, or at least I felt that, if I may say, the one who was heading the team, that no, this was getting too technical. So yes, that was something that we did. From the editing side, yes, it was a lot of back and forth. We would not agree to a lot of things. We would reinsert a lot of aspects. Now, end of the day, we are covering a very technical subject which connects banking, non-performing assets, law, impact on every stakeholder. Of course, there are references to case laws. So the way we split this book is
also the role of government,
sorry?
Also the role of government and the implementation of those policies.
Absolutely,
yeah.
the role of the government, implementation, how they, at least I believe one thing for sure is that the easiest thing in this country or across the globe is to criticize something. You just pick up something you can criticize for 45 minutes. But you tell me which other, the lawyers would know this better, but how many such laws are there in this country which have the data updated on a quarterly basis where you can actually start discussing, disseminating, and criticizing it constructively to see what better can be done. So now the challenge is when you put in that kind of technical content, even though it's a publishing house which does legal books, sometimes the editors find it a bit too much to absorb and put that in. So yes, that was a challenging process. In fact, I think from July, August 22 till about February 23 was our back and forth, about 7 to 8 months of multiple rounds of back and forths with the editor of the book, who was helping us edit from the publisher's side. So yeah, that was a challenge.
So getting a book published, what it actually displays is that getting a book published is not an easy task. You have an idea, you have to not just write, but also then go through the entire publishing process of several edits and then back and forths, and that's why it needs patience as well. Now coming to the next and the most important part of this, you're ready with your book, you went out with it. It has some great endorsements, but right after, I also see a lot of brilliant reviews that came out for the book in the media. And it was unlike most of the books that fall in the academic nature or write in a particular genre. This went beyond and was covered in regular media, not just a specific law-oriented media, but the regular media. You yourself were writing several articles which you have just suggested young students to also start exploring. So the marketing part of it, if you look at it, how much of it has helped in your own personal branding exercise? I would like to, in fact, because there was a question right before, how to start and run your own, how much has it helped in your business, in your professional, the identity that it builds, and so just primarily that?
So with respect to the first part, in terms of, yes, the book reaching out, yeah, there was certainly a lot of help that we took in terms of ensuring that the book reaches out to people beyond the legal fraternity. So definitely that is something that due credit has to be given where it has to be given. With respect to the second part in terms of, sorry, the second part of your question was,
How has it helped in
helped
your
on the
own
back-
personal
yeah.
branding? Because the session right before was talking about branding.
Yeah.
So the personal branding and really helped in your business, I mean the law firm.
I think it's too early to say that, because the book was released last year in August, September 2023. And as someone very rightly said in the previous session that, see, when you're doing something like this, you're writing a book, or for that matter, you're writing continuously articles, so on and so forth. These are small, I mean, of course, book is a relatively larger one, but these are pieces of investments that you're making of your time, of your intellect, of your efforts, and these will show results at a point in time. So it would be, I would say, a little bit too early to say that, and it would also, I mean, you need patience for that. But certainly, it has widened, personally, my horizon beyond just looking at this as a book, merely as a commercial lawyer or a litigator, and has opened up doors where today we are exploring into or getting into other areas of writing. So definitely it does help. I mean, if you're saying specifically from a perspective of brand building, yes, it is a part of it. This is not the only thing. Of course, you need authenticity and integrity, as was again discussed. That's something, because people will check. Even if you've written a book, even if you're very active on social media, all of that is there. End of the day, before a client, and today the clients are very smart, irrespective of the sector from where the client is coming in, they would do a check on you, they would do a check on the work that you've been doing. So yes, this becomes a good reference point or a good starting point, but then there's a lot more in terms of the work that you actually put in the courts, depending on, of course, if you're a litigator or non-litigator.
And my last question before I open the floor to audience question is, what is next? What are you writing next?
So there are two things I'm working on next. One you're aware of. So the one on the legal side is about commercial disputes and commercial litigation. We're trying to see if we can put together something which demystifies commercial litigation. And here I take the opportunity to say that Lipika is also the founder of something called the Indic Pen. I think you should tell people about that. And she's encouraged me to write something which connects some of our Indic wisdom and Indic knowledge with contemporary issues. It could be, again, I would connect it to my legal areas, but then that's something which you should, that's where we should be ending our discussion with.
Well, thank you for bringing that up, Anant. I've spent almost like 2 decades of my work in publishing. And having worked with several writers over the years, I've realized that, and as very rightly pointed out by Anant, is that the book is the only thing that goes into history. The written word is the word that will remain in history forever. And what I do see is a dearth of writing happening which connects our Indic roots to our present times and ideates on future. We have a very strong, we had Indic systems in place. We had, in terms of administration, law, every field you pick, you have rich Indic experience, you have rich Bharatiya experience, so to say. And it is very important, especially for the youth, to start thinking on the lines of how you can bring that forth for future generations to continue taking it ahead. And the Indic Pen is one such effort. I would like to open this now forum for a Q&A. Yes, sir, please.
Thanks. I am S.S. Yadav, advocate. I have 2 questions. One question is about NPA. Is there how much percentage of fraudulent is there?
How much percentage of?
Fraudulent is there in NPA.
Fraud. How much percentage of fraud?
Fraudulent in the NPA
I
cases.
think if you can please, I'll be happy.
And the second one is, what about this SBI bond which is given to the political parties?
Okay, fine. So the first one, we consciously avoided getting technical, but I'll be more than happy. You put me in a comfort zone now. Now I'll get super technical. The NPA, basically, if I were to give you a basic perspective, please read up the white paper that's been released in February 2024 by the present government. When the Vajpayee government left its, was done with its tenure in 2004, the NPA, gross NPA was somewhere about, if I'm not wrong, 6-7%. The NPA rose up to about, in fact, the NPA came down to 2.2 to 3% in 2008, 2009. So you'll feel that things were very good. But that was when a lot of window dressing, that's what you call fraud, corruption, scandals, back-to-back charges, a lot of evergreening of loans that were happening. So that all kept on happening after the global economic crisis from 2008 up to 2014. 2014, we were a fragile 5 economy where the gross NPA underlined number was about 10-11 lakh crores. And there is a report by, if I'm not wrong, one of the larger organizations, I don't think it's Credit Suisse, but one of the bigger ones, you can check it in the white paper. 44% of the loans which had actually gone, even NPA, they were not declared till the last minute because the economy would have crashed. 2014, we were on the verge of a crash of an economy. We had only gold reserves, or we had reserves for about 6 months of imports, total imports, which again came down from 17 months in 2004. So 2004, if we had forex reserves wherein we could import up to 17 months of our imports, and that came down to 6. So that's the other aspect. Now this, thankfully, and that's where I strongly believe that this government did manage to bite the bullet, swallow the poison pill, and in 2014-15, they started actually calling a spade a spade. If it's an NPA, call it an NPA. No more restructuring, paisa ghumawing, paisa doing all of that. No, nothing doing. If it's an NPA, if it's a bad asset, pass the stress test. If the stress test is not getting passed, then that becomes a non-performing asset. And that was about 10 to 11 lakh crores. So your NPA declaration started properly in 2015-16. It touched the peak of about 11% for public sector, 11% overall, and about 15-16% for public sector banks in 2018-19 financial years. You can check all of this data. Today, 2020-23, 31st March 23, our gross NPA for the first time after about 1.5 decades has come down to 3.87%. And our net NPA is less than 1%, which means this law has actually performed well. So NPAs have come down. Today, from a fragile 5, we are one of the bright spots in the Indian economy. We already touched $4 billion. We're looking to be the 5th largest economy, I think soon, 2027. And I think after that, we're targeting towards being the 3rd largest economy. So definitely this has helped. Our forex reserves are at an all-time high. Now, also with respect to a lot of banking, monetary, fiscal policies, a lot of stricter norms have been brought in. So now it's not so easy. I'm not saying that we are assured there'll never be a fraud. End of the day, who does the fraud? It's end of the day citizen of this country in collusion with A, B, and C. So yeah, but then we are much better off. With respect to the electoral bonds, I may not be in a position to completely make a statement because the Supreme Court has fixed a final date of 18th of March for SBI to give the correlated accounts. The SBI right now has given how much of bonds were bought, which is about 13,000 crores by various individuals, corporates, entities, and which were the political parties which got the amounts. But that correlation is what they asked for 3 months, and the Supreme Court has yesterday, I think, pulled up, if I'm not wrong, or day before yesterday, pulled up the SBI in an election commission hearing, wherein they're saying that, no, you please give us this data, latest, if I'm not wrong, by 18th of March, which is when we know that how it's going to be coming in. Now, so I guess that's about it. I think I can discuss more, but that I don't want to put a controversial subject out there, but I'm happy to discuss more on this.
Yeah, we can discuss that offline. Any other questions? Well, I think there'll be a lot more questions with regard to this book and the code, and you can take them with Anant post this session. I would like to thank Oak Bridge Publishing for putting together such a fantastic show today, and this is going to be on for 2 days. Vidhi Utsav is a very unique idea, and I congratulate them. Thank you very much for giving us a patient hearing, and thank you for a great introduction. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Vidhi Utsav. Thank you to Oak Bridge. Thank you, Lipika, for being a great moderator. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much for that, sir. And, I was just, while you were thinking and you were talking about it, I was just thinking about, how it goes out for an author, especially I was reading Somerset. And she basically puts it out as, there are 3 rules of writing a book and nobody knows anything about it. So basically, you do you, and I wish you all the success for your book. I'd invite Sirish sir to just felicitate both the speakers with the memento. And please stay back for a group photo. Hello. Yeah.
Great conversation. All the panels are great, but you know, the first panel for an author interview is fantastic.
Yeah, I was fulfilling the literature part of it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.